Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all joining us around the world, whether you are with us through Zoom or live streaming platform. My name is Nishtha Dawari, Partnership Lead at World Food Forum Nepal chapter, and your moderator for today's session. Today mark a truly meaningful movement. We all are gathered here to officially launch this global dialogue series in honor of International Year of Young Women Farmer 2026. To our speakers, our partners, our participants across the continent, and especially to young women farmers and youth advocates joining us today, thank you. Your presence here is itself a statement of commitment. In 2026, the international community has come together under a banner that speaks directly to why we are here, empower young women transforming agri-food system. This is simply not a commemorative year. It is a turning point, a movement to shift how the world sees, values, and invest in young women farmer not just as the recipient of aids, but as a footprint in policy document, but also as the system architect, knowledge holder, and a leader of agri-food system transformation we urgently needed. Women farmers, especially young women, are central to food production, biodiversity conservation, household nutrition, and local economies, and yet they continues to face structural barrier, limited access to land, finances, technology, and decision-making spaces. According to FAO, while more than half of the bilateral agricultural funding incorporate gender consideration, only 6% places gender equality at its core. This gap is exactly why this initiative aims to help close. We can't speak about women in isolation. Agri-food systems are under enormous pressure today from climate change and biodiversity loss, rapid technological changes, geopolitical instability, and trade disruption. This pressure does not affect everyone equally. They fall hardest on those who already face the deepest structural inequality, including young women and girls in the rural communities. This is why today's dialogue must be both evidence based and rooted in life experiences. We need policy that is not just written about young women farmers, but written with them and by them. And as we move through this series and co-develop our policy brief, FAO's four better framework give us a common compass, a shared standard against which we measure every recommendation we make. The first one is better production, sustainable, resilient, and the equitable food production system. Second, better nutrition, ensuring access to diverse, nutritious diet for all. Third, better environment, protecting natural resources and biodiversity for the future generation. And the fourth is better life, advancing social equity, dignity, and economic inclusion for rural communities. These four pillars are not just our compass, are our compass. Every discussion, every policy message, and every call to action we generate in this series will be tested against them. Does it improve production? Does it improve nutrition? Does it improve the environment? Does it improve the lives? And for this kickoff meeting specifically, we have three interconnected goals. First is to establish a shared foundation for the International Year of Women Farmer 2026 Dialogue Series. Second, to elevate young women farmer as system leader and surface the cross-cutting challenges they face. And the third is to begin co-creating a global youth call to action, a concise set of policy messages and commitment that will evolve and shape across our future session. What you contribute today, insight, questions, live experiences will directly feed into consolidated policy brief intended to reach the Youth Policy Board, government, World Food Forum chapters, and the global policy platform. Before we move into our dialogues, I want to acknowledge the remarkable intercohort collaboration that has made today's program possible, bringing together the Young Scientist Group alumni, cohort members, partners from Indonesia, Brazil, Hungary, Nigeria, Nepal, and beyond. This is what youth led gender responsive policy action looks like in place. And now, allow me to introduce our first speaker, Snavati Hidaya. She is a researcher in Center of Economic and Law Studies and finishing a PhD under joint supervision between the Department of Economics and Law in Sapienza University of Rome, Italy, and Department of Public Health and Primary Care in Leiden University Medical Center, Netherlands. She earned her master's degree in international development studies, specializing in economic development from Wageningen University and Research. She is the founder of Institute for Rural Development and Sustainability, which was recognized as the best research institute at Indonesia's SDG Action Award 2022, organized by the National Development Planning Agencies. Adding on, she is now a member of Young Scientist Group World Food Forum. In 2024, she was honored as one of the top Agri-Food Pioneer 2024 by the World Food Prize Foundation, an organization established by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Norman Borlaug for her contribution to the field of food and nutrition security. I will now hand over the mic to Snavati, who will walk us through the pathway of collaboration that has brought us here. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunities to speak up today. So I would like to say thank you for everyone that joining our interesting event and very important one. And this is about the global call to action, especially welcoming the International Year of Women Farmer. Thank you, Nista, for introducing myself. And here we would like to, elevate the young women, girls, and youth at the central agenda of Agrifood system, especially in this very specific year in 2026. And today, there are so many young people gathered here, like they are about like 4,200 more than registered participants, spread all across the countries, at least 9, from Indonesia, Pakistan, Nepal, and Brazil, and etc. So we are very, we are very honored to host this event, and we can gather a lot of young people with the good spirit, and we can work together in this very important moment. And as mentioned by the moderator, that currently we have 6% of funding places gender equality to the core objective. However, the women do work, but they did not hold the resource itself. And we know that if women get empowered, they can also contribute to the transforming agri-food system, especially in this year, because we would like to welcoming International Year Women Farmers. And in this coalition, we are named ourselves with For a Better Global Coalition. We consist of several organizations, not only the civil society organization, but also university and the World Food Forum National Chapter. We are aware that there are rapid technology change and digital divides, and also there occurs geopolitical and instability, especially in the trade disruption, and also the climate change and biodiversity loss. Therefore, with all this challenge, we have the persistent gender inequality still existed to this day. And why, where do we stand? Like, where do the For Better Global Coalition stand? We know that there is a global framework and global effort that is still ongoing now, and we very appreciate that. For instance, the FAO, they have the 4 better pillars, like better production, better nutrition, better environment, and then better life. And then also from the World Food Forum, they have priorities. They have the Youth Policy Board that discussing about the policy recommendation. The World Food Forum also has the Young Scientist Group. They would like to produce the evidence synthesis for the intervention. Therefore, there is some specific gap that need to be filled in from the grassroots itself. That's why the For Better Global Coalition is access, because we would like to, invite all the grassroots organization, people from the local NGOs, maybe small organization that too difficult for them to reach the high level discussion. Then we make this collective action, this collective effort to make the voices even louder and even stronger. So that's why the positioning of For Better Global Coalition. And in here, we also have discussion with the World Food Forum headquarters to aligning the purpose of this, we aligning our strategy and our initiative, so then we can achieve the goal in the end together by empowered young women, girls, and youth together in this welcoming International Year of Women Farmers. There are dual objective, like this year, like the first one, we would like to join in the high level discussion from World Food Forum because they have their priorities, and we would like to contribute on developing the framework, for instance. And the second one, we would like to produce the evidence-based advocacy. So because we consist of several countries, youth organization, we can produce the real story from the ground, and then the country level data, and those we hope that this advocacy brief can fill in the gap that might exist on this effort, like in the global movement and global effort. And we have 4 thematic that we would like to broad up. The first one is about the technology, digital innovation, and AI. And it's aligned with the priority from World Food Forum headquarters. So we would like to join in the strategic consultation in this specific theme. And the other thematic, we have empowerment, land tenure, and social protection. Theme number 3, we have geopolitics, trade, and financing, because we aware that currently we're facing kind of a geopolitical tension that we cannot neglect at all. And the fourth one, the thematic, is about the transformative diets and resilient livelihood. So based on this thematic number 2, 3, 4, we would like to produce the advocacy brief in the end by combining the scientific based finding with the policy recommendation, which then in the end we would like to disseminate it to the whether this is in the country level or in the higher level. And then this, because when we talk about the transforming agri-food system, it's something that interconnected. It cannot be separate one in each other. That's why we are covering very diverse, thematic as our priorities. And this is the step of our collaboration, like the pathways. At first, we are join the force together, and then we would like to have the bi-monthly seminar, or we would like to gather a lot of young people to discuss about it, to make in the end the output, which is to generate the data or story from the field, compile it into the advocacy brief or data and insight brief, and we would like to consolidate it in the end. We also would like to work together with Youth Policy Board and also the Young Scientist Group. And this is the global stage that we would like to do, which is we would like to hopefully can disseminate it during the World Food Forum flagship event in 2026. We hopefully also can disseminate it through the network of World Food Forum national chapter or to the government in across the world. And the next one, we would like to produce the output is knowledge brief or advocacy brief. And we hope that we also can broad up the real world case studies from the ground, especially capturing the story of young women or women farmers. And this is now we are consisting several organizations coming from Brazil, Nepal, Hungary, Indonesia, and also Nigeria, but we would like to also open the door for everyone that want to join this force as well. And in the end, we have the joint coalition. We will have the strategic partnership. As I mentioned, we would like to join in the consultation for the World Food Forum, especially they will bring up the priorities about digital innovation and AI. The second one is knowledge contributors in here. And the third one is outreach advocacy. And then this one, maybe you can scan the QR code. This is for every organization that might interested to join the force, whether you are a small one or medium size or a big organization, you can join us, because mostly the one who joining the high level discussion is the one that in covering very huge size, like in the national level, for instance. But in here, whether you are in village level or on very local level, you can join us. Your voice is still matter, and we just equal, and we will make the collaborative, equally. We will heard every voice that we believe it will be very matter. And in the end, hopefully we can bridging the global framework to the local realities, because we know that this work cannot be done only in global level discussion, but it's need to be done in the grassroots level. The grassroots, if it is too sporadic, it will be hard to capture the voices. Then by doing the global coalition, we make sure that our voice become collective, and it will be easier to, make the voice louder and even noisy, like when to get attention, and okay, this is important and we need to pay attention in this specific issue. That's all from my side, and I hope it gives the knowledge and laying the ground about the coalition. And I give a floor back to Nista. Thank you so much for the floor.
Thank you so much, Snavati. The architect you have laid 4 interconnected thematic meetings for global cohesion and building towards consolidated policy brief by the end of the year. It gave us exciting and purposeful roadmap ahead. And for now, we turn to our second dialogue and a perspective. We are very honored to have with us today, Dr. Mona Chaya. She currently serves as a special advisory in the Chief Scientist Office at World Food Forum, sorry, Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. She previously led the strategic program Make Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry More Productive and Sustainable is office in charge and served as senior coordinator of the Food Chain Crisis Coordination and Intelligence Unit at FAO from 2009 to 2018. And she bring extensive humanitarian experiences, having spent 13 years working on agricultural rehabilitations and livelihood resilience in countries affected by war and natural disasters such as Burundi, Afghanistan, Uganda, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Philippines, Moldova, etc. And she also conduct research at ICARDA in Aleppo, Syria. She holds a master's degree in agronomy and a PhD in plant molecular biology. With these years of expertise from field-based humanitarian work to strategic leadership, she brings a unique perspective on sustainable, resilient agri-food system. Thank you so much, Mona, for being here. Now, I'd like to open with a question. From FAO perspective, what does the International Year of Women Farmer 2026 represent is an opportunity to accelerate gender transformative change in agri-food system. The mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Nishta, and thank you for the introduction. First of all, let me say it's such a pleasure to be invited to this webinar and to be among the Youth Organizations Coalition. And congratulations, really, congratulations for this initiative of this global call to action for the International Year of Women Farmers 2026. As you very well presented, Nishta, you actually presented already the opportunities from FAO perspective by listing our mantra, actually, the four betters: better production. FAO has a compass, as you rightly said: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind, to transform agri-food systems to become more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable to achieve the 2030 agenda. So this is our compass. So now the opportunities coming under this framework of our four betters. How does FAO see this year, actually? So we see it as a pivotal year for women farmers and FAO, declared by the United Nations General Assembly and entrusted to FAO to lead on behalf of the global community. It is a global opportunity to shed light on the crucial roles that women play in agri-food systems and to address the structural barriers that limit their potential. It places women farmers at the center of agri-food systems transformation, recognizing them as agents of change, innovators, and leaders. It provides an opportunity to making visible the full diversity of women's contributions across value chains and raises global awareness of their indispensable roles in agri-food systems. This year also highlights that while women play essential roles across agri-food systems, they continue to face persistent inequalities in access to resources, finance, markets, services, technologies, land rights, decent work, decision-making, and their heavier burden, unpaid care burdens, actually. And you listed some of those, Nishta, and I know that other panelists will go into those barriers into details. So as we said, the list is very long. While across the globe, agri-food systems stand as one of the largest sources of employment for women. And in many countries, they provide a more essential livelihood for women than for men. Statistics show that they constitute 43% of agricultural workforce globally. 60 to 80% of food production is in developing countries is done by women. While 15% of landholders are women, And 70% of SDGs are impacted by gender equality, showing that there is no sustainable development without gender equality. So facing this, the year will enable stronger focus on gender transformative approaches, tackling the root causes of inequality, including discriminatory social norms, unequal power relations, and structural constraints. Youth movements and platforms, including the WFF's Global Youth Action Initiative and its Young Scientists Group, can serve as strategic allies in influencing national, regional, and global agendas for this year. By harnessing these networks and initiatives, FAO can amplify the leadership of young women farmers, integrate youth-led innovative solutions into policy processes. So this year can also mobilize collective action and investment to close the gender gap. So the other part of the question, which is very important, so what are the global conversations and policy actions for this international year? Now, I will start with the global conversations that we must lead. First of all, any global conversation should shift from including women towards empowering women and on transforming agri-food systems, focusing on the structural and social drivers of gender inequality. We must lead conversations on equal rights and equal resources. We must talk openly about land rights, inheritance, financial inclusion, and access to resources, technology, and markets. And these remain structural barriers to women farmers. We must have conversations on women's leadership, not beneficiaries. Women farmers are not beneficiaries. They are leaders, innovators, and decision makers. The year should strengthen their voice in producer organizations, cooperatives, scientific research, policy-making spaces, government institutions, communities, and local governments. We must also focus our conversations on gender norms and power, about the social norms restricting women's mobility, the unpaid care responsibilities that limit opportunities, and the persistent stereotypes that shape investment flows. Conversations on climate resilience. Women farmers are on the front lines of climate change, yet they have the least access to adaptation resources. Gender-responsive climate policies, early warning systems, and resilience programming must become standard practice. Women in agricultural sciences. This is another global conversation we must have. Women's participation and leadership are essential to creating research and solutions that reflect real-world challenges. Closing the gender gap in science is not just about increasing participation. It is about transforming how knowledge is created and who gets to shape research agendas. We must have conversations also on science policy interfaces, in which it is key to ensuring that women farmers are meaningfully engaged to upholding the core principles of credibility, relevance, and legitimacy. It also helps ensure that evidence-informed agri-food policies are rooted in diverse knowledge systems and reflect the lived realities of those who are too often overlooked. And last but not least, conversations led by women and youth together. Youth and women together form a powerful force for transformation. The year should promote intergenerational leadership, creative advocacy, and new forms of storytelling, from film to digital campaigns already championed by youth networks across the world. So what would be the policy actions that should accompany this global conversation? Policies in reforming legal frameworks and reforming policies to ensure equal rights to land, resources, services, and decent work, and to have access to finance, technology, education, markets, value chains, public procurement, and social protection. Ensuring women's meaningful participation and leadership in policy-making institutions and producer organizations. Embedding gender transformative approaches into national agri-food strategies, policies in increasing public and private investments in gender-responsive and gender-transformative programs across agri-food systems, expanding gender-responsive crisis policies in context of climate change, conflict, pandemics, and environmental degradation, improving the availability and use of sex disaggregated data systems to inform evidence-based policies and investments, strengthening partnerships across governments, civil society, private sector, and youth to sustain momentum beyond 2026. And last but not least, governments should not forget the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality. These guidelines provide a global framework for ensuring women's rights in food security and nutrition. So let me end my intervention by saying that all this, either the global conversation or the policy actions of this year, will not be sustained without your active involvement as young active groups, and this campaign risks losing its forward momentum. So your role is extremely important. As youth organizations coalition, especially young women, you are uniquely positioned to elevate the voices of women farmers, to co-design lasting innovations, and to build solidarity across generations and geographies. And always remember that change comes from within, never from outside. So it is your call now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mona, for reminding us how important this year is to shed light on the crucial role that the women are playing in the agri-food system transformation, and reminding us that no, there is no sustainable development without the inclusive engagement of women. Thank you so much. And while talking, I realize how important and what value we young women holds in the today's discussion. Thank you so much. And it was incredibly grounding to hear from you directly, and thank you for inspiring us. Now, moving on to the second guest of today's session, we have Juliana Hay. Let me introduce Juliana. She holds a degree in agronomy and a master's in bioenergy from the State University of Ponta Grossa. She has hands-on experience in organic primary plant certification, particularly working with family farming communities through the Paranamore Organic Program. And beyond her technical work, Juliana is also passionate about the education and the sustainability. She serves as a mentor in the literacy group Multiply STCs, and initiative led by the Sucentera Research and Extension Center at the University of Public Health of Sao Paulo, USP. And she is actively engaged at the global level as well, contributing to the Brazilian National Youth Chapter and participating in Young Scientists Group of World Food Forum. With that impressive background, we are excited to hear our perspective on critical question from a food system perspective and women farmer voices. Which structural barrier must constrain young women agencies, resilience, and leadership in agri-food system? And what does the evidence tell us about where intervention is more effective? Welcome, Juliana, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Nishta, and hi, everyone. Thanks, Isna, also for inviting me to participate in this event. And thanks to everyone that is here attending this extremely important event on global youth action in the International Year of Women Farmers. So as a woman, it's extremely important to highlight the realities, challenges, and success stories of the women farmers I encounter daily basis on my work. So in the weeks leading up to this event, I took the opportunity to engage directly with women farmers in my region during their annual gathering, known as Collective Triumph. And I posed this very same question to them. So I saw that despite differences in age and personal trajectories, their responses were strictly consistent. While context may vary, the challenges remain largely the same. And these structural barriers are particularly restrictive when we talk about the absence of technical assistance and public policies that recognize women as a diverse group and with urgent and specific needs. And these challenges manifest across multiple dimensions of life. So they can range from legal obstacles such as difficulties in accessing land following the loss of parents or partners, to the lack of basic documentation required for essential activities like opening a bank account. And they also include limited access to education and literacy, insufficient information in menstrual and maternal health, and the absence of safe and reliable channels for report violence, for example. And it's equally critical the lack of time for rest and leisure, that it's constrained by the triple burden of productive, reproductive, and community responsibilities that many rural women carry. And persistent gender inequalities continue to shape decision-making expenses within agri-food systems. And a lot of women with I talk with say that sexism and male dominance still limits women's participation, resulting in their perspectives being always overlooked or undervalued, even within their own houses and communities. And all of these challenges extend beyond the sphere of production itself. But in the case of women, they are deeply intertwined with reproduction, because agriculture has its origins in the work of women who historically gather seeds and fruits for their communities. And drawing on this ancestral knowledge, with peasant family farmer continues to play this role in preserving agrobiodiversity, contributing to food sovereignty, and even security. So these families are often here in Brazil referred as guardians, because they conserve and multiply these native varieties, ensuring then continuity across generations. And this represents one of the several strategies that are employed by women farmers to promote recirculation of seeds and to reduce dependency on technological packages controlled by large corporations, for example. And this knowledge and techniques have accompanied human societies for thousands of years. And in the Brazilian context specifically, there is an additional challenge that lies in the limited access to mechanisms that add value to rural production, particularly when we talk about certification process, which constrains some sorts of income generation, restrict entry into institutional markets. And in response to that, we have some target public policies that have been developed to support these women farmers, especially those that are seeking organic certification, which can be extremely expensive when pursued independently. So one of these programs is the program I belong with, that it's called Paraná Mais Orgânico in Portuguese. And it's through these state and federal programs that these women, many of whom are responsible for fruit and vegetable productions, they are able to increase their incomes and expand participation across agri-food systems, including in food processing and commercialization. In all this context, and in response to the second part of the question, is that I would like not to offer only reflections, but also practical pathways that it's grounded in my lived experience. So in my region, I have been closely engaged in both observing and supporting the formation of collectives of women farmers. And these initiatives are intentionally designed to welcome, to guide, and empower rural women, and this foster their more equitable ways and active participation across all stages of agri-food systems. So since the cultivation spots and processing to marketing, as well as access to finance mechanisms and food acquisition programs that prioritize family farmers, organic production, and women-led initiatives. And these collectives, they're convened through regular monthly or annual gatherings that extend well beyond agricultural production, because they function as a space of reconnection, dialogue, mutual learning. We have some teams, some like health, education, politics, philosophy, psychology that are openly discussed in these events. And we can strengthen both individual agency and collective resilience. And one of the ways this woman strengthen resilience and autonomy is through an activity that we know as mandala in Portuguese. And in practice, it's when each farmer brings seedlings and seeds representative of her region or farm and places them within a circle. And in conclusion of these activities, of these events, these materials are exchanged among them and fostering biodiversity, mutual support, and a strong sense of community. And of course, these collectives prioritize also teams that are identified by women, so the needs these women have. In this year, for instance, the discussions were focused on domestic violence because we have the feature participation of a female judge who explained in accessible and practical terms how legal frameworks can protect women and what steps can be taken in situations of vulnerability that we see so much happening in rural areas. And another practical initiative that focused on making visible both the productive and the reproductive labor carried out by women family farmers. And there's a political pedagogical methodology known as the agroecological notebook that invites women to systematically document it based on their own knowledge and experiences. Everything that is produced, exchanged, and consumed, or even donated to neighbors or sold from their backyards and cultivated plots. And this process fosters self-observation of the women's recognition, appreciation of their daily work basis, strengthening women's autonomy, deepen their understanding in the economic contributions, and reinforce the collective organization and political engagement. And it also captures dimensions such as access to public policies, land and water resources, market opportunities. And notably, among 15 women farmers that were interviewed, more than $38,000 in a single year were registered about this invisible work. So finally, these experiences demonstrate the most effective interventions are grounded in local realities approaches. So I would like to sincerely thank you for the opportunity to contribute in the discussion. And I'm looking forward to continue the dialogue and learning from these perspectives that will be shared here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliana. The barrier you've mentioned, education, technology, maternal health, finances, care burden, digital exclusion, all of these are not new. And but what often missing is the policy will. And I think we youth can create the pressure together to solve these issues worldwide. So thank you so much for your insight. Before moving forward, I'd like to say a quick hello to all our participants who have joined us through our live stream. And moving forward, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ana Luisa Domingos. She is a Brazilian senior consultant and a researcher with over 15 years of experiences in food security and nutrition, public health, and sustainable food system. Her work focuses on transforming agri-food system to address some of today's most pressing challenges, including obesity, undernutrition, and climate change. She brings extensive experience in bridging science, policy, and society, having worked with UN agencies, government, academia, and civil society. She also holds a PhD in nutritional science and is currently based in Metz, France. And as mentioned earlier, she is from Brazil, a country that has made a significant strides in public food procurement and family farming policies. And she will help us explore a key question: what does the Brazilian experience tells us about which policy level most effectively expand young women farmer agencies in agri-food system? The floor is yours, Anna.
Thank you very much, Nishta. So good morning, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this invitation. It is a privilege to join this dialogue and to share some perspectives from Brazil in terms of public policies. So first, I'd like to share an example about the public procurement in Brazil. So we have the Brazil's national school feeding program, we call PNAE, and is one of the largest school feeding initiatives at the global level, so serving nearly 40 million students every day. So for over a decade, federal law required that at least 30% of the school feeding budgets be sourced from family farmers. So this transformed the logic of the market. In October last year, 2025, President Lula signed a law raising this threshold to 45% starting in January this year, in 2026. So the law gives priority to formal and informal groups of women farmers, complementing, of course, the previous priorities for agrarian reform settlements, indigenous communities, and quilombola communities. So this is an example of public procurement when well designed with equity in mind is not just a market mechanism, it is a policy of recognition. Second, Brazil also has a dedicated credit line called Pronaf Mulher, which provides financing to women farmers within family farmers unit, regardless of their marital status. So the program is funded, is available. However, as Juliana mentioned, uptake remains low because of bureaucracy requirements. Third example that I want to share with you is Brazil also runs, we call in Portuguese, the A Terra Mulheres Rurais program. So providing technical assistance and rural extension for women farmers. So since 2023, it has reached over 9 million women across 21 states in Brazil. So helping them adopt agroecological practices, access to institutional markets like PNAE, as I mentioned, and also the food acquisition program. So increasing income and strength, autonomy and participation in rural communities. Adding a youth component right now, so Brazil also has launched the National Plan for Youth and Rural Succession in 2024. The plan aims to help young people remain in their communities, and this is super important. So we strengthen family succession and contribute to sustainable rural development. So of course, it targets youth, so ages 15 to 29, including family farmers, indigenous peoples, and traditional communities living in rural, forest, and aquatic areas. So the plan responds to main challenge that we have in Brazil. So rural exodus. So about 2 million young people left rural areas between 2000 and 2020 because of the lack of opportunities there. And the second one is rural succession. So ensuring youth can inherit and development productive activities on family farmers. So that's the main challenge of Brazil regarding youth participation. So this plan is super important because it has 6 strategic areas. So one is access to land and territory. Second, productive inclusion. So third, education in rural areas, health and quality of life, connectivity and political participation, environmental and territory protection. So one thing that I think in Brazil it's super important to mention that the plan was developed through participatory workshops, so with different ministries, 14 ministries, civil society, and youth across all Brazil. So this is a mechanism that we value a lot in Brazil. So priorities for this plan include gender equity and diversity, support for quilombola and traditional youth, and strengthening family farmers to ensure food sovereignty and productivity autonomy. My last point here of course, beyond policies, women farmers organize and advocate. So an example that for us in Brazil, and Juliana, she's here to share with me this emotional example, is the Marcha das Margaridas in Portuguese. It's a national-wide movement that brings together women from all backgrounds. So we have rural, urban, indigenous, quilombola, young, and of the diversity identities. So these women, they are farmers, food producers, guardians of seeds, biodiversity, and traditional knowledge. So through this Marcha das Margaridas, they share experience, stand up for their rights, and influence policy in Brazil. So this shows that real change requires both access and voice. In conclusion, Brazil shows that the structural change required well-designed public policies. But as Mona said in her presentation, young women farmers are not beneficiaries waiting for policies. They are leaders, agents of transformation. So recognition, access, and voice must come together to enable real agency. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anna. And your insight clearly shows how government and their targeted policy levers can open door for farming families, young women farmers, and strengthen their agencies. So. Now we now turn to a dimension that is too often treated as separate nutrition. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Viulaha Oitutu. She is a PhD student in nutrition at Texas A&M University in United States. Her research explored how diet and metabolic factors shape health outcomes with a particular focus on the interaction between nutrition, the gut microbiomes, and metabolic pathways. She previously completed her master's degree in nutrition in Chungnam National University in South Korea as a recipient of prestigious Global Korean Scholarship and hold a first-class degree in human nutrition and dietetics from Michael Okpala University of Agriculture in Nigeria. Beyond her academic work, she serves as a program manager for the Young African Nutrition Scholar Fellowship at Nutrition Drive for Healthy Diet Initiative, where she support early career nutrition scientists and promote collaboration reach across Africa. And her work and advocacy focus on strengthening evidence-based approaches to address food security, the double burden of malnutrition, and the role of women empowerment in improving nutrition outcome for families and the communities. And today she will guide us through an important question: from a nutrition research perspective, how can agri-food system better support women farmers and girls in accessing diverse nutrition diet? Bilua, the floor is yours. Sorry,
Thank you
I
so much.
mispronounced your name. Sorry, the floor.
That's okay. Thank you so much, Nisha, for the warm introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. I am the Research and Program Manager at NDDI. NDDI stands for Nutrition Drive for Healthy Diet Initiative. It's a youth-led nutrition research and policy organization working across Nigeria. So, to the conversation of today, as we prepare for the International Year of Women Farmers 2026, one thing we've learned from all our wonderful presenters is that women and girls are central to food systems as producers, caregivers, decision makers, and drivers of nutrition. But the question remains, is our food system truly supporting women? Is it truly supporting women's access to nutritious diets? At NDDI, we generate evidence to understand how food environments, feeding practices, and socioeconomic factors can shape nutrition outcomes, especially for women and children. And I'll share 3 key findings from our work that speaks directly to this conversation. Firstly, our study on over 1,200 Nigerian women child pairs, in that study, we found out that many households experience double burden of malnutrition. What is double burden of malnutrition? The double burden of malnutrition is a paradoxical situation where mothers are overweight while their children are undernourished in the same household. This tells us that food systems are not failing because food is unavailable, but because the right kinds of food are not accessible, affordable, or prioritized. What was even more concerning in that study is that this paradoxical situation was even more common in food-secure households. So this is telling us that access alone is not enough. Nutrition quality must be central to agri-food systems. In another study we did, we found out that many children are being fed frequently, but the diet was not diverse, So this shows us that it shows structural issues like access to diverse foods, gaps in maternal knowledge, and food environment that does not support healthy choices. So for women, this becomes a challenge because how can they make nutrition decisions within systems that do not fully support them? So we decided to study the food environment in emerging adults in universities and colleges. And we found out that unhealthy and ultra-processed food dominate in availability and are aggressively advertised. We are in an era of social media, and targeted advertising of convenience food is making healthy foods less available and sometimes very expensive. So again, how can women and girls make healthy choices in less supportive environments? So from a nutrition research perspective, to answer the question of how can agri-food systems better support women, farmers, and girls, I would say that our evidence points to 3 priorities. 1, we have to shift focus from food quantity to quality. Approximately 1/5 of all the food produced for human consumption is wasted. So that means we have to include food preservation and quality in the conversation as well. Agri-food systems must prioritize diverse, nutrient-dense food, not just calorie production. Secondly, we have to transform food environments. We must improve the availability, the affordability, and promotion of healthy foods, especially in the era of social media. We must leverage social media, especially in communities and informal markets. We have to market foods that the farmers are making. We have to find a way to create that barrier. We have to break that barrier where there's targeted advertising of processed food and targeted advertising of natural foods produced by young female farmers. Thirdly, we have to center women in agri-food policies. Among women farmers, there's limited empowerment, like we've heard. There are also situations where these young farmers, even when they produce foods, they use the money they get from this produce for non-food needs, like healthcare, like education, like housing. And so they leave no room for these young farmers to prioritize their own dietary quality. How can we create an environment where even the farmers cannot benefit from what they produce? So women need access not only to land and resources, but also to nutrition knowledge, decision-making power, and supportive systems. So in conclusion, I would like to say this. Supporting women farmers and girls goes beyond production. It requires aligning agri-food systems with nutrition outcomes. And at NDDI, we believe that data must not only inform policy, but drive systems that make healthy choices possible for every woman and every child. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Beulah. That was a powerful reminder that producing food does not always translate into accessing nutritious diet, especially for women, girls, and children, and how important it is to produce the good quality food instead of large quantity. So, thank you so much. Now, as we move to our final speaker for today's session, it is my pleasure to introduce Martina Morello. She is an advisor on young women empowerment at FAO Office of Youth and Women. She holds a master's degree in gender policies and inequalities from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and bring a strong research background in strategic communication for gender advocacy and policy changes. In her current role, she coordinates intersectional mechanism on young women empowerment within the World Food Forum Global Youth Action Initiative. To close our discussion, Martina will take us into a forward-looking question: how we youth movement and platform, including the Young Scientist Group and World Food Forum chapters, engage with national, regional, and global international Year of Women Farmer 2026 agenda. Martina.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, and also thanks to all the people online. I see 300 people online. It's quite of a big success. Just to double check, I see that my computer is flagging. I have low internet connection. Can you all hear me well? Okay, perfect. I hope it's not gonna crash down while I speak. So I think the question that you raised is fundamental, because it's very important to understand that the International Year of the Woman Farmer, it's not just a UN global year. It's not something that is closed in the space of the United Nations or of the personnel of the UN, but it's something that we all must own. It's a collective space for action, for discussion, and for change. So to address your question, I just wanted to make a little premise. For the sake of the International Year of the Woman Farmer, we need to start from the definition. Women farmers are defined as all women working across agri-food systems in every segment of the value chain and in diverse capacities. So this includes farmers, producers, peasants, family smallholder farmers, seasonal laborers, but also, as you were mentioning before, we refer to nutritionists, to scientists. Basically, all the women who work across the value chain in this very wide and complex system are part of this celebration year. And this is also important because we refer not only to older women, to more senior women, but also to young women, as many of those who I see connected today, but also women with disabilities, refugee, indigenous women, and so on. The International Year was designed to recognize formal and informal work and to highlight the contribution that each of us makes to agri-food system. And in this case, it is a year of advocacy, of course. It's a moment for discussion, but it's also a moment for change. And through the work, FAO promotes not as mere beneficiaries, as listeners of this conversation, but as actors of change. But let me take a step back, because I would like to share with you a bit of the story behind youth initiative. Everyone is fully familiar with it. FAO has been working on youth for many, many years, and of course also on women. And particularly this was done through the combination of analytical work and on-the-ground action. And we do have strong evidence. FAO has last year released a flagship publication, which is the status of youth in agri-food systems, which I encourage you to read, that shows clear data on how youth are often marginalized, and there are still some very wide gaps in the system. And it's essential that we do focus on youth as actors of change for a sustainable future for our agri-food systems. Recognizing the role that youth play in youth are already recognized in a FAO strategic framework. And in 2024, this commitment that the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN has toward the younger population was further institutionalized by the creation of the Office of Youth and Women, where the World Food Forum Youth Initiative sits. And the World Food Forum Youth Initiative is aimed at complementing the technical work that FAO does on youth and women in agri-food systems by creating spaces for collaboration, for conversation, and for action. And today, the fact that the chapters, the Young Scientists Group, and so many people in our network came together in an independent way to discuss a topic, it's exactly the kind of result that we aim to see. This kind of fostering connection, this kind of fostering discussion. In the end, we are facilitators for something which is way bigger than the people we can directly reach. It's the indirect impact, it's the multiplier impact that we have. That is our biggest asset. But so to go back to your question, it's very important that young people engage in the International Year of the Woman Farmer. And we tried through the initiative to develop some ways, some pathways for you to engage. So for example, as you might know, we do work on education, innovation, on food heritage and culture-based communication, and on policy engagement, and of course on local action. And for each of these areas, we developed some ways that you can get involved with. For example, in the education area of work, this year we launched an agri-food leadership program, which is targeted to young women to become community leaders. So through a combination of technical masterclasses and soft skills, we're trying to build a cohort of young women leaders who are going to act as trained. We are sort of developing a training of trainers. You're going to act as catalyzer of this knowledge in your own communities, bringing also all your skills, all your positionality and perspective in your projects. And I see some familiar faces, so it's nice to see also the just connecting from various cohorts. And then another thing that we're going to launch this year is an incubator. Women innovators are a key component for the future of agri-food systems. But how many times have we spoke about digital divide? How many times we have spoke about the gap in the STEM field? And this is a global gap. Of course, with that needs contextualization. But this is something we all share. This sort of roles that are associated to women and men in agri-food systems. So, for example, in 2026, for the International Year of the Woman Farmer, youth in Morocco have asked for the possibility to build an incubation program for women innovators. And we try to respond to this call to action, building this in collaboration with the institutions there. And again, there are many other ways you can engage directly. One of these is policy conversation. And today is a clear example of this kind of policy engagement. But we will have multiple dialogues over the year, either a global or a regional level, where you can bring the International Year of Woman Farmer, not as a topic, but more as a guiding principle. How can we think? How can we talk about the agri-food systems? How we can talk about anything in this field without thinking about women, and especially young women, who are the future and the present of our systems. So I just wanted to share a couple of things that you can, like a couple of tools that you can use in your communities, because something we have been working lately is how we move outside our bubbles. So of course, here in this call, I'm sure there are so many people who are already interested in agri-food, but something you can do for influencing the outcomes of this year is to bring this agenda outside of our usual target. And to do so, one of the strategies that we adopted was the creation of an impact screening toolkit. So we know that movies and culture can be very useful in conveying messages outside the target audience. And we developed a guideline on how to organize, for example, impact screenings. This was for me an exceptional exercise. A few weeks ago, I was at the Commission on the Status of Women, and we held our first impact screening. We wanted to pilot it ourselves to see how was the reaction. And in the room, we had very young students from middle school, from high school, so many people who never heard about the International Year of the Woman Farmer before. And the conversation was so vivid also because there were so many different opinions, so many different backgrounds. So if you ask me how youth how youth can influence this agenda, I would say talk about it. Talk about it and take action about it in your small circle, in your bigger circle, in your family, in your school, among friends, and try to bring this conversation to be relevant for so many other people, because it's from this fostering of the connection that we can really bring change. And of course, this is in the end a global movement, but the action and the impact is local. So also when you talk, collect stories, try to bring the stories of those who maybe are not able to join global fora to the conversation. Because the real power of this year for me, and in the case of the Work for Forum Youth Initiative, is how do we make sure that young people become the voice of the International Year, that young women are centered in this International Year. So I would really appreciate the possibility to talk with each of you in this call. All the insights so far were so interesting, and I'm sure that there are so many people listening who also have ideas. Please feel free to reach out to us, to the office. I will leave also our contacts in the chat, and to discuss different ideas, because each context might require different approach, but we do have so many different toolkits, so many different good practices that we can tailor together to make sure that the International Year at the end of 2026 is something that we collectively own and that we collectively push forward. And again, thank you for inviting me. I'm very open to any question. I hope I was in the time that was allocated to me.
Thank you so much, Martina, and thank you so much for sharing all the initiative that FAO and World Food Forum Global Team is taking. And thank you so much for the reminder that policy influences require both presence and the persistent. And we should always show up in the right place and always stay engaged through advocacy, drafting, and the revision process. And this is something not just the Young Scientist Group or World Food Forum members should be doing. This is something all the people should be doing to bring changes and changes in the life of the young women farmers. So thank you so much for sharing your initiative. And now moving forward, we have now heard from all of our speakers, and my role in the next minute is not to repeat what they have said, but to weave it together, because we have heard from we have heard today was not just six separate presentation, but it was a thread of the same story. And I want to leave this room seeing the whole the story as a whole. And let me take you all through it. So we begin with Isnavati, who gave us something that is easier to underestimate: a structure, a clear, deliberate pathway, which is very underestimated but very important. Four thematic meetings building together a co-authored policy brief culminating in dissemination through the Youth Policy Board, World Food Forum chapters, and the global platform by the end of 2026. And why does this matter? Because youth voice in policy space are too often invited and too often seen as a tokenism, but not heard again. And what she has designed is the opposite of that, and it is sustained culminative process where every meeting add a layer, and every dialogues, every presentations sharpen the evidence, and every participant is a co-architect of what we will produce in future. And the framing she said today is this: we are not just the observer, we are building it. So moving forward, what Mona brought us was the institutional lens through the FAO, and it was also a crucial reminder. And International Year creates window, and it is one of a rare moment where the global policies architecture is actively working. And actively looking for inputs, for evidence, for voice to shape what comes next. And she was also clear that we should fill this window with the substances, with the evidence, and with the real life experiences. And the conversation this year must be grounded in the national realities, in what is actually happening for women farmer across the world, in Indonesia, in Brazil, in Nigeria, in Nepal, not only in what look goods in a global declaration. And this shift was a symbolic recognition to structural accountability, and is the standard against which every output of this series should be measured. And the third is Juliana gave us the evidence base, and is both sobering and clarifying. And the all the barriers she mentioned was not just a new finding, but she reminded us why evidence mattered, and she pointed us towards where intervention is most effective. And the interconnectedness is something our policy brief must reflect. Fourth, Anna brought us from evidence to application. She shared how government and the policy levelers are working and helping the farming families, young women farmer in their countries. And this lesson should be something that should travel around the world. And inclusion is not an add-on, and it should be the architecture. And she also reminded us that young women farmers are not just a homogeneous group. Policy lever must be sensitive to the age, geography, household structures, and the specific barrier that different women face in the different contexts. And the fifth one is Beulah brought us a thread that is often missing from the agri-food system. She shared three things we should focus on. We should focus on the quality rather than the quantity, and we should also market the healthy food through the utilization of social media, which is the most common tool for advocacy nowadays. And the third is we should also send the women in the food policy. um, and um, um, and our framing was also clear: better nutrition cannot only mean nutrition for consumers, it should be nutritious for the farmer herself. And if the person growing our food cannot access the nutritious food, we should consider the system is failing. We should know that food system is failing. So the final one is from Martina. She brought us back to the room, to this network, and to what we youth are capable of. And Young Scientist Group and World Food Forum are my are not just the communication channel, they should be credible, and they should work as a sustained advocacy platform. And she reminded us that meaningful engagement in policy spaces means being present not only when the policies are being announced, but when they are being drafted, when they are being debated, and when they are being revised. And this kind of sustained presence is what transform youth participant from a gesture into a force. So what is this story, this sixth thread tells us is we have a rare window, we have a rare opportunity, and we should fill this opportunity with the evidence. And we have to work on the policies, and we have a nutritious lens that keep us honest about who our systems are actually serving. And we should have a youth movement with the credibility and the structure to turn all of this into a long lasting changes. And we should build together a unified evidence-based youth-led call to action that ties all of the things together. And this is where we all begin. After talking for more than a few minutes, I now like to pass on this floor to Fawaz. We are going to co-create the beginning of our global youth call to action, and I would like to hand over this mic to Fawaz to guide us through an interactive session. Uh, Fawaz, over to you, and everyone be ready and be excited for the next session.
Thank you very much, Nishta. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much for the great moderation and for summarizing amazingly what each speakers said. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Fawaz Bagudu. I'm from the Young Scientists group, and I'm so excited to be moderating this next session. So, what we are going to do is to co-create together and shape this global call to action. And we are going to use Mentimeter. So are you ready? Let me share my screen. So please, can you see my screen? I will invite everyone to scan the QR code. And I think the link is also shared in the chat. So please join this Mentimeter so that we are going to work together. Okay, so the first question is, in one word, what does empowerment mean to young women farmers? So we have been talking a lot about empowering, right? So please share your understanding of empowering. Oh, I can already see people putting their thoughts. Take action together, okay? Moving forward. Interesting. Security, okay? One thing that's is coming up more is freedom. That's quite interesting. Thank you for sharing your insights. Well, let's move to the next question. Please keep putting your insights. So, the second question will help us to get specific about what blocks this empowerment. So please rank from the most urgent to the least one in 2026. So the structural barrier, is it technology, unpaid care work, digital connectivity, land access, finance, underrepresentation in government and policy? Please share with us your insights. Wow. By far, we're seeing technology as one of a structural barrier that is most urgent to fix this year, followed by a digital connectivity gap. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, thank you for sharing your insights. Let's keep putting our insights. Let's give them few seconds to get a more insights. Okay, technology so far, followed by digital connectivity gap, and then finance. Okay, thank you so much for your input. So let's go to the next question. So now we are here for concrete commitment. So please propose one concrete commitment for this global youth call to action. So I recommend that you use some verb, action-oriented verb. Ensure, okay? Interesting, yeah. Invest, I totally agree. Empower, empower comes again. Protect our environment, okay? Guarantee equal land right and access to finance for young women farmers and girls. Thank you for sharing this. Ensure equal land access and resources for young women farmers. Wow. I think the audience is really inspired tonight. Thank you. Establish a global youth-led monitoring fund to finance local climate adaptation project by 2028. We even have a deadline here. I think that's a very, very strong commitment. Another interesting one, guarantee equal land rights and access to finance for young women. Right. So let's maybe move to the next one. Please keep voting. Now, from the commitments that you shared and some of the commitments that have been mentioned during this event, please vote for 3 that you think we should prioritize in our call to action. So, secure young women's land rights and tenure, expand gender responsive finance for young women farmers, close the digital divide, reduce unpaid care burdens through rural service and social protection, or guarantee women's representation in producer organization and policy bodies, or protect women farmers from violence and discrimination in agri-food workspaces. We're seeing a lot of people thinking that securing young women's land, right, and tenure should be prioritized. And throughout this event, we've been talking a lot about land rights, land access, and tenure. So that makes total sense. Keep voting, keep voting. Okay, thank you all. I'm curious. In the beginning, it was mentioned that at least 9 countries are represented tonight, but please, can you share in the chat where you are joining us from? Thank you. So while people are still voting, let's see where people are joining from, and then move to the next slides. Thank you all for your participation. Okay, few seconds more. We have Indonesia, we have Pakistan. Thank you. We have Nepal, Turkmenistan. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, Japan. Hey. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you all for joining us from all over the world. Wow, thank you. Then let's go to the final question. So, some of the outputs for this series will be thinking about advocacy messages, advocacy brief. So please pick top 2 advocacy messages that we should carry forward into the advocacy brief. And I'm so happy to see that people are joining from all over the world. So I think we'll have a very good sense of what should really be done throughout the world. So some of the messages that we have structural barriers must be addressed via evidence-based policy. Then we have young women farmers are system architects, not beneficiaries. I think we heard that a lot throughout this session. Then we have policy that must include lived experience to be accountable. Let's give a couple of seconds for people to join. We have people from Uganda. Hello. We have East Kalimantan. That must be Indonesia. Timur. Hello. Thank you all for joining us from all over the world. Let's give a couple of more seconds to people who are still voting. Okay. Okay, thank you all. I think we have most of votes already. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this and for co-creating this together. to quickly summarize what we had when we asked one word that for the meaning of empowerment. We had freedom, we have independence. So that's really powerful. Thank you. For commitment, we have a lot of commitments. Guarantee, ensure, co-creating. Thank you so much. And one of the things that came up was to secure young women land rights and tenure, followed by expand gender responsive finance for young women farmers. And I think that was mentioned a lot during this session. Thank you all for your participation and for the advocacy message that will then be brought and built into advocacy brief. We had young women farmers as system architects, not beneficiaries, followed by structural barriers must be addressed via evidence-based policy. I think we had a lot of substance to uh, build a very strong call to action for this event. Thank you all, and back to you, Ashton.
Thank you so much, Fawaz, and thank you to all our participants. I'm really amazed by the enthusiasm, by the reaction in the Mentimeter and over the chat box. And to all the participants, what you have just done is remarkable. You have collectively begun to map our shared priorities as a global youth community, and these responses you have contributed will be analyzed and synthesized into the initial draft of a global youth call to action, which will continue to evolve across our upcoming thematic meetings in May, July, and September. I think today we did something very important. We gather voice from different countries like Indonesia, Brazil, Nigeria, Uganda, Hungary, Nepal, Pakistan, and other across the globe. And we heard the evidences, experiences, and aspirations. And we begin together to build a call to action that belong to all of us. And I think International Year of Women Farmer 2026 is not just a movement, it is a movement, and this group is a part of making it one. And before we close, I want to briefly mention what will come next. The input from today's key messages from the speakers, co-creation results, and the speaker insights, and the responses in of the Mentimeters will be synthesized into a summary note within the coming weeks. And our next meeting will be in the May, focused on technology, digital innovation, and AI, and what these means for young women farmers. And to all our respected speakers, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, and for your commitment to this work. To Fawaz, thank you for facilitating the Mentimeter session in an amazing way. And to all our participants who have joined us through, whether through Zoom or through different live streaming platform, your presence here is a statement of solidarity with young women farmers global. And on behalf of entire organizing team, thank you so much, and hope to see you soon in the next session. Thank you.